My name's Thomas, and today we are checking out Scariest Places We Have Ever Been by Planet Dolan. Got it right this first time. And from the type, the thing in the corner where it usually shows the narrator, we get Hellbent. This should be fun. So, how about in Scariest Places, this one's titled Scariest Places We Have Ever Been. This ought to be good. So how about we just get into this, okay? I'll link the original video down below. If you like this, like, comment, subscribe. Let's rock.
Planet Dolan.
And Ghostos is animated for this.
From creepy abandoned houses to the deep backwoods, the Planet Dolan crew reenacts some of the best true stories from our subreddit about the scariest places we've ever been. I'm Hellbent, and today I'll be your narrator.
Hey, Hellbent.
Number 10 was submitted by Joey Skylinks. While growing up in Arizona, Gergak and his friend Sid were always interested in collecting gemstones.
Oh.
So they would go to nearby ravines to look around and have a good time. One day, while they were going up a ravine near their apartments, Gergak and Sid came across a drain pipe that was roughly 3 meters wide. Of course, they decided it would be an excellent spot to go find gold and quartz gemstones. As
Why would they be in there?
Down there, they saw a small clearing with very high grass. It was summer, so they were unsure if there would be rattlesnakes, Gila monsters, or other desert critters that would be in their way. As they walked to the drain pipe, Gergak and Sid heard some rustling in a nearby bush and were struck with fear, unsure what was nearby. Within seconds of hearing that noise, they saw whatever it was pushing the grass down as it approached. They knew it was only a matter of time before it was on top of them, so Gergak and Sid bolted as fast as they could into the drain pipe and out of the other end. What was scary wasn't so much what was in that field of grass, but rather when they finally got to the end of the tunnel, they kept hearing the noise of multiple people yelling and screaming in a ghastly manner. When they made it to the other end, Gergak and Sid saw that the drain pipe led them about half a kilometer away from their complex. When they turned around to see if anything was following them, they saw a dark shadow sitting at the entrance of the tunnel before a gust of wind picked it up and blew it away. Number 9 was submitted by PitFiend007. Mikhailum's grandpa lives out in the country in the mountains of Tennessee, where a lot of battles were fought in the Civil War. He took Mikhailum and his older brother along on a tour of one particular house. He said the house was built back in the 1830s and was renovated and remodeled, but eventually abandoned in the 1930s, and now it's just decaying and ruin. He told Mikhailum that back in the Civil War, a group of Union scavengers came up to the house in the night. At the time, a young woman lived there alone. The half-dozen soldiers each took turns raping her and then knocked her unconscious and burnt the house with her inside. The house was rebuilt, with the only original part left being the basement. It changed ownership a couple of times, but Mikhailum's grandpa told him that no one ever lived there for more than a couple of years. So Mikhailum, his grandpa, and his brother went inside, and fortunately it was broad daylight. He was immediately struck by the sense that he shouldn't be in there. They explored the house, but Mikhailum couldn't get the feeling out of his mind until he came across the door to the cellar. He wanted to look like a tough explorer in front of his tough-as-nails grandpa, so he opened it. It was pitch black. He was suddenly hit with an overwhelming sense of absolute fear and panic. Mikhailum was silent, and he swore he could hear slow footsteps coming up the rotting wooden stairs. He shouted,
"Oh, fuck no,"
as he slammed the door and locked it. After calming himself down, he heard something behind the cellar door, pounding it violently. Mikhailum saw it shake and then ran out of the house. Number 8 was submitted by All Your Base or Belong. Melissa was 17 and her sister was 12. They went hiking in the woods with their family dog in rural Missouri. They didn't get very deep into the woods when they found what looked to be an abandoned playground. The place was in bad shape. The equipment was rusty and falling apart, and nature was taking over. The whole place had a "you don't belong here" vibe. After a couple of minutes, Melissa and her sister heard a loud bang come from what was left of some monkey bars. Neither of them really remember what happened afterwards. All Melissa could remember was a massive headache and then waking up outside in the woods, sprawled out on the ground with her still unconscious sister clinging to her arm. Melissa had to carry her sister back home. Number 7 was submitted by Aleem912. One time, Dolan's local youth group hiked to a haunted house that was owned by Count de Charles Lopenot, a rich slave master who ran a cocoa estate, who also had a horse farm and a graveyard for his slaves and his dead wife. During the night, they heard a whisper in French and frequent horse cries, so the group went out to see what was creating the noise. When they heard the whispering stop, which was by a cave where the alleged firewoman or Sukiant lived, they didn't find anything. Heading back to the camp at 3 a.m., they saw a quick flash of fire on the hillside. Then what seemed to be the silhouette of a man on a horse yelling in French at them on a hillside seemed to be like 2 seconds. As Dolan and his group got up to the top, there was nothing. In the morning, as they broke down camp, one of Dolan's friends had a huge purple mark on his back and his tent was destroyed. Number 6 was submitted by XX Haley the Bug XX. There's an abandoned house next to Emoji's house that him and his friends decided to break into because they were bored. As soon as they walked in, it was filled with porcelain dolls. This was already fucked up enough, but when they explored the rooms, there was a skeleton of an animal in a bedroom. After they saw this, Emoji and his friends decided to get the hell out of there.
Smart.
Number 5 was submitted by
never a good
Shadow
sign.
1. The scariest place Honey Bits has ever been is in a house on top of a hill in the middle of the woods. There was a story that a woman who did witchcraft lived there. And being the idiot that she was, Honey Bits went. When she got there, it smelled like dead animal. There were old broken toys everywhere and the windows were all shattered. She looked down the hall and saw something hunched on its back, walking towards her. Honey Bits screamed and ran all the way home. She had nightmares about the place and doesn't go into those woods anymore. Number 4 was submitted by Titus Douthelis. The spookiest place Pringle ever went was in the backwoods of Camelback, Pennsylvania. He was 8 when him and his family went to investigate an old site. As his dad distributed the soil and leaf litter, Pringle heard a sharp scream. "Get out!" He saw a shadowy figure with a red aura on the second floor of the ransacked building. He asked his mother,
"Who's that figure in the window?"
She looked and then asked him, "What figure? There's no one there!" Even now, after 15 years and a better understanding of the world, Pringle doesn't know who or what the specter was. Number 3 was submitted by Big G566. Andy Mations and her 2 friends were exploring the countryside where they lived and ran into an old theater. Without any thought, they decided to go in and check it out. When they stepped inside, everything was still there. So they walked into the actual place where they showed the movies. When they went in, they were in shock to see a person standing on top of the stage staring at them. They thought it was just a prop, so they went closer to it. And as they did, it started moving closer to them. Andy Mations and her friends ran as fast as they could and never went back. Number 2 was submitted by XXX. Thank Memester XXX. Every Christmas, Legna's family hosts a gigantic Christmas parties at a gigantic church, and they usually hand out presents and hot food. Sometimes Legna and the other kids would play hide and seek, going up as far as 2 stories. Above there is a dark mansion-like room that no one uses. They used to hear growling and gagging noises from there. One night, Legna and his friends Ladybot and Tullip had the nerve to hide up there, and it was fine at first. It was dark, but nothing happened for the first 5 minutes, until they heard a little growl and some tapping. Legna said quietly,
"What the hell was that?"
His friends were too scared to move. They knew they weren't alone, and whoever that was out there was not friendly. Then they heard their full names being called. They didn't move, and Tullip said,
"I don't want to die."
Then they heard loud calling at the door, and to their horror, they saw an awful-looking figure. They screamed and then ran out of there before hearing the window break. They ran down 2 flights of stairs before seeing their parents and passing out. Later, when they told someone, the person said that a depressed man had hung himself at that window in 1901. What's the scariest place I've ever been? Once at an old job, I got stuck in a walk-in freezer. The door mechanism had failed, and unfortunately, those doors are really sturdy, so trying to bash it down or bust through the window wasn't working. No cell phone reception either. The idea of calling out for help was off the list. On the plus side, I was surrounded by beer, so at least I wasn't gonna die first. On the dark side, nobody was set to come back to that place for another 12 hours. So at first I panicked. Kicking the door down wasn't gonna happen. Fixing the mechanism, off the list. Breaking the window, maybe, but it wasn't working out for me at the moment. Turns out glass that's meant to insulate is actually pretty fucking tough. So after about 2 hours of running around that little cube with my cell phone, desperately trying to get a line out, it suddenly struck me that I was freezing to death. In a panic, I was freaking out thinking, how am I gonna turn this thing off? And then I went and just turned it off. There was a switch right there the whole time. But staring up at the box fan slowing down reminded me of something. That fucking thing's pulling in air from the outside. That's my ticket out. So for the next 45 minutes, I disassembled the fan using a multi-tool I had in my pocket and carefully placed all of the parts inside of the freezer in a very neat pile. I would have freaked out and ripped the whole thing apart, but at that point I had about 8 beers, so I was okay. Anyways, after I disassembled the fan unit, I climbed through the ventilation shaft, dropped out from about 10 feet onto the concrete, and I was free. Alright, I realized that there are no ghosts and it's not a spooky story, but that first hour or two was pretty fucking terrifying. Knowing you're completely alone and nobody's gonna come to help you puts your psyche to a very specific test. And while passing that test feels good, I still get a little bit nervous every time a door shuts behind me in a walk-in freezer. Huge thanks to the folks over on our Planet Dolan subreddit for submitting their stories. We have another question for you. What's the worst thing you've ever done while drunk? Let us know on the Reddit page.
That I'm pretty sure we're gonna get a lot of stories.
But that's all I got for today, so thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.
Man, those were some pretty scary ones. I mean, though they didn't have a chance of dying. Well, except for Hellbents. Jeez. 12 hours? Fucking freezer. I don't even remember the event. So anyway, hope y'all enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time. Laters.